Hello, everyone, and thank you again for joining us for the public meeting for the Calf Canyon Hermit Peaks fire for June 13th. Big news today is that we went from 67% contained up to 70% contained, where 3% may not sound like a lot, but when you're using 320,495 acres, 3% is 9,615 acres more that were contained. So we're making great progress here on day 69 of this incident. Things are getting done. A lot of work's getting done out there. We're going to cover three basic topics tonight, three things. The first one you probably shouldn't care a lot about, and that is that Team 2, Southwest Team 2, is timing out after today. After our second tour here with your folks, this is our last day. We're going to head home tomorrow, see our families for 2 or 3 days. And as everyone knows, there's a lot of other fires out there. We're going to be redeployed. Don't worry about that because Southwest Team 1 is still here in the North Zone, and we're being replaced by our partners from Southwest Team 5. So technically, we're Southwest Area Incident Management Teams, but nobody can say that 5 times real fast, so we just go with that. Bottom line is that we've all been working together for many, many years, and you're going to continue to get the same solid quality firefighting, fire management, and fire information that you've grown accustomed to, I hope. Next thing you should be caring about, and that is all of the organizations that are working hard to put together plans and implement them with post-fire planning and the flooding and debris flows. So everything from the feds with FEMA to the state of New Mexico, your county, and your local governments. In fact, right now, there is a live public meeting going on at the Cabo Lucero Fire Station. There, San Miguel County Emergency Management is hosting that. It's not being streamed, it's just in person. But for the first time that I know of, we're not going to have Chris Lopez, Sheriff Lopez, here with us. Travis Martinez from the State Emergency Operations Center is there, as well as Mr. Peter J. Garcia Sr. from the New Mexico Environmental, all up and talking. And they'll be back on here. You're still going to have these meetings Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and they're going to continue to share those messages. Our agency administrators are going to talk a little bit about that planning forward, those things moving forward for your community as the changes come in the weather, some coming sooner than others. And the third thing is we still have a wildfire out there. There's still a heck of a lot of work getting done. All of that suppression repair work and logistics are happening. Those contingency lines up in the north and around different communities are all still being built. And that Pecos Wilderness piece, that problem child that we've been talking about all around here, as expected, has become quite active again. There's fire moving with all the hotter, drier, and very windy weather. And our operations chiefs are going to talk about all of those issues. So let's go right on up to our North Zone Operations Section Chief with Southwest Team 1, Jason Coyle.
Good evening, everybody. So today in the North Zone, we continued to work on our containment lines, and we continued to work on doing the suppression repair. And as some of you probably saw, and I'm sure that the South Zone is going to talk about when they come up to their turn, that there's been some more fire activity on the Southern Zone. There's more smoke that you can see from Taos. And it's just kind of a reaffirmation, if you will, to the fact that the work that we're doing on that contingency line are meaningful work. And also understand that the IMET's going to talk about how why we are expecting some moisture later this week. What's different about that than the normal onset of the monsoons. So with that, I thought I'd just take a moment to explain what we've got going on the North Zone and how our little color codes, when you see this on the map, what it means. So on the combined southern and northern contingency lines, there's about 60 miles of line in there. It was difficult for us to articulate, the work that was being done there and how much progress was being made. A number of days in a row, I've sat there and said, hey, we're continuing to make progress on. So we came up with a way that we think is going to be a little bit more effective to communicate that progress. And if you look on these containment lines, you'll see multiple different colors. We'll start down here on the south, and explain what this is. So the blue is the first color you'll see after the dozer line was pioneered. So the very initial push of the dozer line to just kind of get it established, it will show up as black. And then once work begins to improve it to where we can move vehicles back and forth on it, when that route is completed, it will turn blue. And then later, as they go through and they do the cutting on both sides of the road to create that shaded fuel break to allow enough room to operate and successfully be able to work to suppress the fire from if necessary, then it will turn to yellow. And after the logs have been hauled off of there, then it will turn to this, I guess it's purple, this purple color. And when the whole shaded fuel break is complete, it will turn to this green color up here. So over the coming days, you're going to be able to see these colors kind of move down the different lines as the work gets done. And ideally what we want to see is we want to see green lines going all the way up there to the top, and then around here on all these, and then down off the corner of the map over here. And that way we know that we've got the right lines in place at the right locations to be able to protect the communities if that becomes necessary. The other thing that I wanted to draw your attention to is the color coding that you'll see in these greens and reds over here along the suppression repair work. The red is areas that need suppression repair that have not received it yet. The green is where the suppression repair has been completed. And as you'll notice that it's kind of a hopscotch, if you will, of different areas. That's because we focused our efforts initially on the areas that have over 30-degree slope, areas adjacent to acequias that flooding that's exacerbated by the lines we put in could damage those acequias, or streams, or also private property. So we're focusing on those areas first, and then we'll continue to move through the rest of them, and you'll be able to see that green growing in both the suppression repair side of it and in the contingency line construction. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Now let's go to Rocky Gilbert, our South Zone Operations Chief from Southwest Team 2.
Good evening, Rocky Gilbert. Here to give you an update on what is happening here on the South Zone. So I'll just cut right to the chase. People are seeing a lot more smoke coming off off stuff in the South Zone today. This area that we've been talking about for several days, down in that Trampas fire scar, just north of the Trampas drainage, which is about right here. That's had heavy winds on it all day today. We've had crews down in there kind of keeping an eye on it. They were the aviation was shut down really early today, so it's just been 4 hand crews down there, so about 80 some people down there working that fire. It's still within our containment line that we've been talking about, which is the Hamilton Mesa Trail. That's our primary containment line. It has moved north today of this little line of hellispots that you see there, probably about 100 acres of fire north of those lines, and it's continued to it's made it across that Rio Mora that we've been talking about. It did that mid-morning this morning. The crews have been in there. They started doing some hand firing, so the ground resources from that helispot 250 moving south. Again, they're taking their time and making sure that what they're putting on the ground is not going to cause themselves more problems. And they're dealing with some really tough conditions. So a lot of wind out there, not able to get in aerial support, but the smoke that's happening there is more visible, like Jason was talking about from this north end. And then we've got several areas of kind of green islands that are also continuing to get hotter and drier, and so they're putting up more smoke as it goes along. So if you think about a campfire, as it starts to dwindle down, once you add some wind to it and you try to blow on it to get the flames to come back, that's what's happening out here. We've got a lot of places with heat that's just waiting for that wind to kick up onto it. And you're going to start seeing smoke kick up around that fire. So we do have folks on scene. We were able to just get aircraft flying over it probably in about the last 20 minutes before I came in here. So just waiting to hear any other reports on that. But the reports from the folks on the ground is it's still where we want it to be, and we're still being successful with what the plan is in there. The rest of this, these dozer lines, like what Jason's talking about, the repair work, we're still engaged with that, moving around. We're coming up kind of this ground north of Sands. There's a couple of really long dozer lines that were put in early in May as contingency lines, and they're starting to work on those, as well as the continued work that we've been talking about starting up near that Skyline Trail. So dealing with the debris, the dozer lines, and the work that was done to make that Skyline Trail, which is the black line with the yellow dots that was used for containment line early in the fire. We still have initial attack capabilities. We were actually requested by the state of New Mexico to send them a couple engines about 30 minutes ago, so we're going to send them a couple engines north. I think it was up by Springer. In that area they had a new start, and so we're going to continue to support them as we can. Again, air resources have been grounded for most of the day, especially the big helicopters, so not sure that we can provide that today. But that's the big message. Things are continuing to be hotter and drier, and you're going to continue to see more smoke until the weather changes.
Thanks, sir. All right, let's go to our incident meteorologist, Tom Bird.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Tom Bird, incident meteorologist. Rocky just hit it pretty well up here in the northern parts of the Pecos Valley where we're seeing all that fire activity. We do have 4 incident remote automated weather stations there that are reporting to us every 15 minutes through the day, so we know exactly what those conditions are up there. And up here just north of all this heat on the Hamilton Mesa, we've had wind gusts to 63 miles an hour today. Over here on Elk Mountain, over 55 miles per hour. The relative humidity's all dropped below 15%. That's that critical number. So we've seen extremely dry and very windy conditions in that area where we're seeing all that heat and smoke come out of the area. So that's just, like you said, it's affirmation. It's a good reminder of the fact that we're still well within fire season, even though we've seen a brief period of moderated conditions. We're right back in the game now. So let's go over to this monitor here, and this is a water vapor satellite imagery, so looking from space down to see if our air is dry or if it's moist. And what we'll see, big area of high pressure out over the southeastern United States, actually pulling some moisture up out of the Gulf, but it's way to our south over South Texas, so actually of no importance to us now, but it will become after midweek. What we see out here out west is this big trough of low pressure aloft that's coming off of the west coast. And this is the pattern that we've seen all spring that gives us these strong winds that we've seen today. So this is where you get this band of really strong winds off the surface that sag south right over New Mexico, northern New Mexico in particular. And from that southwest direction with really warm, dry air to our southwest, that advects that dry, warm air and then puts those winds right over us. And that's what we've seen. You know, we've had several days where we've seen a lot of this storm activity up over this area, but with these dry winds coming in, it's shoved most of that moisture out and then mixed it with dry air to now we're just seeing fair weather, flat clouds that don't produce any kind of precipitation at all and really don't help us with relative humidity either. So we've really trended towards more critical and elevated fire weather. We'll see that here on this next slide. So again, this is that pattern with that trough moving in with the strong winds coming right over the northern half of the state. This graph right here shows those strong winds in purple coming right across the fire. That's today. And then also over the southwestern United States, this brown area, that's the driest air in the country right now coming right over the fire. You can see some of that more moist air coming up out of the Gulf of Mexico to our east, but we are in these westerlies with very dry conditions in place. So for today, that meant a red flag, and we have definitely verified the red flag both with the weather and with the fire conditions that we're seeing. We're going to repeat that again tomorrow, and in fact, overnight, we're expecting these strong winds to just continue all through the night. That'll keep the relative humidity down all night, so we're expecting active fire behavior to go well into the night and maybe all night into the morning. So for tomorrow, again, really strong winds from the southwest, keeping our relative humidity very low and our temperatures warm. So another red flag warning for tomorrow. Now Wednesday, we start to get this system to move away. That'll help us ease our winds. And you see our somewhat lighter winds. It'll still be a breezy day, somewhat gusty on the ridges, but wind is really what drives this more than anything else. So with the lower winds, even though we're still exceptionally dry and warm, we'll see somewhat moderated fire behavior, although we're still going to see active fire on this day also because of these wind conditions. So probably not a red flag, but definitely elevated. So let's go next. All right, so going through the rest of the week. I told you we were dry today, but we have drier air upstream coming in from the southwest. So we will actually be dropping those dew points, a measure of how much moisture we have in the air, lower tomorrow and again on Wednesday. So poor relative humidity at night and exceptionally low relative humidity during the days, possibly into the single digits like what we have been seeing back in the past. That shows up in the relative humidity also. We get this downward trend in relative humidity with the daytimes, these darker, way down low. And at night, when you expect it to come up, it's staying low. So we've got another 24, 48 or more hours of these tough conditions to get through before we start to see this sharp trend upward in moisture. This is a good thing. And you see, no showers, no rain, hardly any clouds the next couple of days. But look what happens Wednesday night going into Thursday, and through the rest of the week, the weekend, and into next week. We start to see a lot of moisture come in from the Gulf. And that's going to give us clouds every day, which is helpful in and of themselves. It's going to allow our relative humidity to trend upward and be beneficial. And then, because we're in the mountains and we get extra lift, we're going to have those daily chances of showers and thunderstorms every day from Thursday as far as out as we can see for right now. So let's go to our next, please. So let's go to late week and kind of take a real quick look at what the pattern looks like. I told you that high pressure is off to the east now, and this is the flow pattern around these large pressure systems. And this is what late week's going to look like. Around the high, you get clockwise rotation. What that's going to do is it's going to spin moisture out of the Gulf of Mexico right up through Texas and into eastern New Mexico. To our west, we have low pressure. Counterclockwise, it pulls moisture out of the Gulf of California right up into Arizona and the Four Corners region. These are both warm bodies of water which evaporate water into the air very efficiently, and then this flow will start drawing that moisture into New Mexico. And this is kind of what it looks like. You can see both of these. This is dew point again. So it's a measure of the moisture. So green, blue, and purple are very moist air. This is the dry air right here. So you can see both of those plumes coming in and meeting right over New Mexico. So next year we're going to see a loop. And you'll see this happening. And this is 10 days, forecast out 10 days from now. And we'll let it run a couple of times. It starts out brown. There's that dry air over us now. And you kind of see how it's pulsing, kind of like a heartbeat. Me and Sam are calling it the heartbeat of the monsoon. Although it's early. So although this pattern looks like the monsoon, and it may end up being the monsoon, but it's too early to call it that, right? Because we've seen in the past many times, we set up this pattern and we get that early surge and it looks like, oh good, we're done, right? We're getting into that moist, and then high pressure moves back over, cuts off that moisture influx, we go back hot and dry. So it's too early to say this is the end of fire season, we're into monsoon. But it is a favorable pattern. It is definitely going to help us in the short term. All right, let's go on. This is our matrix that we use here on the incident to give everybody good situational awareness, and we've already talked about Tuesday, Wednesday, so we'll move on. Here's Thursday. I told you Thursday's a day that we start to see the moisture come in from the Gulf on south and southeast winds. That's a great deal. You can see our relative humidity does start to come up. Here's the afternoon. Our temperatures will come down with more clouds. This is the first day we'll reintroduce showers into the forecast. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and going on, you see a southerly wind, more moisture, more clouds, cooler temperatures, better chances for showers and thunderstorms. All of these work in our favor. So let's go on. Okay, so Jason, right up front, said, be careful, thinking this is the monsoon. So I wanted to show you that the date, on average, that this part of New Mexico experiences the peak of large fire season isn't for another 10 days. So we still got probably almost 2 weeks before we get to this bump when the fuels are their driest. And we're in that period. So we're still there, even though we're starting to see some moisture start to come in. So let's now go to when we think is the average end. This is the day, July 1st, when typically we've had enough of those intermittent surges of Gulf moisture into the Segre de Cristos from the east that we start seeing that fires are more manageable, so they don't get large as often. So we call this the end of large fire season. It can vary by a week or two. Hopefully this year, it looks like it might vary early as opposed to late. So we're hoping for that, but we still can't count on that. One last thing, I think. Exactly. I think if you looked, we had like 5 or 6 days of showers and thunderstorms in the forecast after Wednesday. Well, this is when we need to watch out for post-fire effects. And a lot of people, you've heard this time and time again about the flash flood potential being extremely high on burnt ground. All that duff, all that soil, all of that litter that's been dropping in the forest for years is burnt away. That used to be the sponge that held the rain, that in the soil. If it's gone, all that rain, instead of being held up on the slopes in the litter, it slides in and down the drainage, and we're talking rapid flash flooding, debris flow. So several ways to get those warnings from the National Weather Service in Albuquerque is local sources of media, their website. You can set up your smartphone to get wireless emergency alerts, and then no weather radio. So I just want to leave you with that, and thank you. Bye-bye.
I think we're all grateful to see some weather coming and holding our breaths with the flooding that we're all preparing for. But at the same time, happy to see some moisture coming here for you folks, as well as Jason Coyle in my hometown of Flagstaff that's facing another major fire. All right, with that, let's go to our fire behavior analyst, Dan Pearson.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Dan Pearson, fire behavior for the final time on this particular role. Before I get started, I'd like to introduce you to Art Gonzalez. He'll be taking over for me. You'll be in wonderful hands. He's actually one of my original trainers. So he's here with Southwest Team 5, and he'll be taking over future community meetings. So you already kind of heard it a number of times. Fire activity is picking up. We had a pretty good suspicion that this was going to occur because of the meteorologist's matrix showing that we had high potential for red flag even 7 days ago. So we knew about this. We have the primary, we have alternate, we have contingency lines. So fire is still in an advantageous spot where we expect it, but it is being much more active. So as Rocky told you about, fire did spot across in Division India, and it is being influenced by both the topography. Fire likes to move uphill. I think I've mentioned that a few times. So the slope runs to the northeast. Rito del Oso also runs to the northeast, so I expect to see the fire come out of Mora Flats, pick up Rito del Oso as well as the Rio Mora Valley, and because those are aligned very well with southwest winds. If we get more of a southerly component overnight, it is possible that the fire will kind of branch off at the confluence of the Rio Valdez and Rio Mora and kind of follow up both terrain features. So fire kind of acts like water in a way. It seems rather opposite, but fluid dynamics. So it follows the path of least resistance. So with the wind pushing it, it likes to funnel. So I expect to see fire primarily moving in all three of these drainages. What's important about that is all three of these drainages are still east of the primary lines. And as the fire moves with the wind, it's moving back upslope into all this, which is already black along the peaks. So overnight tonight, I expect to hear reports of the fire remaining active well past where it normally start dying down around sunset, an hour after sunset. We're expecting really poor relative humidity recovery and strong winds throughout the night, so fire will likely continue on that. So I was asked to use, I used an analogy earlier today in a different meeting, and so I was asked to do it again. So hopefully you'll bear with me, and hopefully your brain works as oddly as mine does. So down here in Division Foxtrot, about 5 days ago, we implemented the ignition operations along the dozer line, and that was to keep any potential fire moving south up the north aspect of Bear Creek and South Fork of Bear Creek from impacting the primary values at risk in the area. That was successful. The crews on the ground have really mopped that up, really secured it, so very little heat continuing there. However, there's about 1.5 miles of heat that hasn't pulled together. So that was a PSD operations, plastic sphere dispenser. So basically aerial ignitions intended to just like put little drops of fire to align the fire so it's not in a position where it can make a rapid upslope movement causing high severity potential fire. This didn't really come together because it's in that subalpine fir. It's in the fuel, like really closed canopy, shaded, cooler, up around 11,000 feet plus. And so it just didn't really pull together with the conditions that we had. We have those conditions now. However, all this is not one big flank of fire, like it's not burning all the way from the dozer line over here, all the way down to the Rio Mora. It is a flank of fire down here, right along the Rio Mora at the base of the Trampas fire scar. But all this is just all these individual little dots of fire. So the way I personally think about it is, imagine all those dots of fire are little red wagons with angry adolescents in them holding Roman candles in both hands. And you know how naughty those kids are. They just want to start fires. And they want to race down the slopes, spreading sparks and embers and spreading chaos wherever they go. This might be a little bit of a self-examination of my childhood, but anyway. So all these are just all the tons and tons, like hundreds of little red wagons, and they're trying to go down slopes sowing chaos. But they have sails because their parents were careful. And with all this really strong wind that we're getting, gusting up to over 60 miles an hour up on Hamilton Mesa, plus 50 miles an hour up at Elk Mountain, which is right above where all those little rascals are, the sails are catching the wind, and those little red wagons can't go down slope. So all they can do is hold their Roman candles out and spread sparks in their immediate vicinity. And so that's what's actually a big chunk of what you're seeing. A lot of the smoke, good chunk of it is from the Division India as this is moving upslope, but a good amount of it is up here at the higher elevation with the denser fuels as all those little red wagons start throwing embers and pulling together. So it's not going anywhere, it's just filling in this bubble. Finally, one final thing, over here on the east side, you possibly, if you're driving on I-25 or 518, you possibly could be seeing some active fire behavior about several miles north of Lone Pine Mesa. We've known about that. That's about a 25 to 50 acre unburned island. It's completely surrounded by black. It's been showing some activity over the last 24, 48 hours, and it's showing activity right now, like everything else. That is not going anywhere, but it is the main area that you will be able to see active fire on the east side of the crest. So with that, I really appreciated the time I've had with you again for the last 2 weeks, and look forward to watching Art talk with you on the future. Thank you very much.
Angry little adolescents. Dan really helps me understand fire behavior in good terms. Shannon Atencio is our New Mexico State Forestry Division Agency Administrator, here to share with us a little bit tonight. Thank you for being here, Shannon.
My name is Shannon Atencio. I'm with New Mexico Forestry Division, and what I wanted to go over is the After Wildfire New Mexico website. And so this is up on the screen now. This is a resource for communities, for landowners, for people who are living in communities that are going through the post-fire situation. So some of the resources that are on here, one of the tabs I want to point out is Who Can Help. And so the Who Can Help tab, if you'll click on that, this is a list of contacts, and some of these have been shared before, but they're organized here all in one place. It's organized into assistance for communities and assistance for individuals and families, and so you guys can go through this website and seek out resources. If you'll scroll back up to the top, The thing that I really wanted to go over tonight was the post-fire treatments, and so if you'll click on that. So I've been getting a lot of questions. We work with private landowners, and we've been getting a lot of calls about what do we do after fire. And so this website has pictures and comparisons of post-fire treatments. So if you'll click on the treatment descriptions, it's organized into hill slope treatments, channel treatments. Let's click on hill slope treatments. Let's go to cover applications. So if you'll scroll through, you'll see different pictures of all these different methods for stabilizing soil and dealing with different situations on fire. People want to stabilize their soil. They want to cut down some of the dead trees and try to slow the water and preserve the soil, keep the soil on site. So if you'll keep scrolling, this goes through descriptions, comparison, typical cost of all these different practices. And so if you'll go back up and let's click on one of the other tabs. Just do, go back to treatment descriptions. So there's channel treatments, there's road and trail treatments. I just basically wanted to give an introduction to this. There's a handout that's called After Wildfire New Mexico, and it's a handout, but this website, if you have access to the internet, is a really good resource for people to go through. And there, like I said, there's comparisons. Let's look at the treatment comparisons table. And so it actually gives comparisons of different types of mulching, spreading hay, seeding. And if you scroll down to the bottom, you can see where it talks about the effectiveness, and these are based on scientific studies. So there's a lot of really good information in this website, and that's really it. I just wanted to give an introduction to it and show people what one of the resources that is available. And so please take a look at that website, and that's answering a lot of the questions that we've been getting phone calls about. So that's it. And I'll pass it on to Steve Hottenbach.
Thank you so much, Shannon. And our agency administrator for the U.S. Forest Service, Santa Fe National Forest, Steve Hottenbach.
Thank you. I wanted to talk a bit about suppression repair and what the team is doing out there in terms of rehabilitating the containment lines that were put in. We've talked about this QR code, this tiny URL that's been publicized at several of our public meetings, cooperator meetings on the Facebook page, and it's in every daily IAP, the incident action plan that our resources carry out there on the line. Some people have asked, where does that information go? What do you do with it if I fill out the private land suppression repair form? That goes to the resource advisors on the team who work with the operations to conduct suppression repair out here on the fire. Now, some of you may have submitted this form early on and wondered when you'll be contacted. Will you be contacted? Yes, you will be contacted. But I want to remind you, please have some patience. It took several thousand firefighters about 2 months to put in all this containment line. And so it also takes some time to go back and repair it. That work is generally done in phases. It's staged around the fire perimeter. Generally starts where the fire is cold and where folks can get in and do the work. And it takes some time to work around the perimeter, as you've heard, over time. And right now, most of the work is happening down here in Mineral Hills. So please have some patience, right? It took a lot of time to put in. Take some time to finish that. I would say, I love seeing that we may get an early monsoon. We may get some wetting rain. So there's huge benefits out of that. There's a bit of a downside too, right? We're doing suppression repair, water barring, chipping, etc., with a lot of heavy equipment out there. They can continue to use that until at some point, if it really does get muddy, we don't want to cause more damage with rutting out roads or private land by bringing in that equipment. So there's a great benefit of that. If the forecast is true and we really see a wetting rain, it might unfortunately slow down some of that work. So just want to tell you that the information's not lost. It goes to the resource advisors. They will eventually contact you. We do stage around the fire getting the work done. And please, if you haven't filled this out, please do so. It's a convenient way for us to collect the information. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Before we go to our incident commander, we just have one question for operations section chief for the South Zone, Rocky Gilbert. where folks have been asking a lot about some of the interior smoke, and Rocky wants to address that.
Okay, you guys got me okay? So the first thing I would just want to cue up, we had a video from yesterday afternoon that kind of shows the area that I want to discuss. So this is looking down into Rio Mora. Off to the right of the screen would be towards the Trompas drainage. And as this flies around, you should be able to see some of the Trompas fire scar as we go. Kind of gives you an idea of the ground that the folks are working in there where I was showing as Helispot 250 and that country. But this is yesterday's fire behavior, and so what you can imagine is that today's is increased significantly from that. And so again, if I can get you guys to just bring in on the map here, this is that area we were just looking at. This is our primary control line, and this is where we've had our firefighters working today to keep up with that. They've taken direct action on some of the spotting. We do have hose lays in here that they've been working to work on that particular area. Now, if we look at some of these other areas, we've had lots of questions on. We're seeing smoke. You're going to continue to see smoke like we talked about, but we have an aircraft that flies an IR flight overnight and picks up heat signatures. And so on this map, all these little dots represent heat signatures that infrared flight has picked up. So you can see there is quite a bit of heat that that aircraft can pick up. Plus there's probably thousands that it can't pick up that are hidden by a log or under a tree, a canopy, or under a rock or something like that. So just know, yes, there are lots of heat sources out there. These sort of perimeters are actually unburned green islands. They're significantly large unburned islands. But if you look out across the landscape, you see stripes of black with stripes of green. And so you can imagine that underneath those stripes of green or on the edges of them, there's probably some heat sources. So some things we want the homeowners to really take home are, you will see smoke. If the smoke is surrounded by black, it's not going to be a threat to you. If it is on the edge of one of those green stripes, know that there is potential for that to become more active. But you really need to look at, is there black between you and where the fire is? Because that's the safety buffer that we talk about when our firefighters are fighting, and we say you always want 1 foot in the black, because that means that your fuels have been removed and the threat has been removed to the firefighter. So just keep that in mind. You will see smokes. If it's in the black, it shouldn't be a threat to you. If you see it in some green that would lead directly to your property, then that's something we need you to report so we can make sure that it can't get to your property. And I hope that helps answer some of those questions. But you will see fire all over the different places of this fire footprint because of that. Okay?
Thanks for that clarity, Chief. Now we'll go to our incident commander for the South Zone of the Calf Canyon Hermit Peak fires, Mr. Dave Bales.
Thanks, Bill. Rocky, thanks for that follow-up. And I really just want to talk about what Rocky was pointing out there in that helicopter video is really the steep, rugged, rough terrain we have our firefighter men and women working in, and it's a big concern to us. And we talk about medical, getting folks out. And so having our folks as deep as they are, and you can see the terrain in the country they're working in and have been across this whole fire. A lot of information tonight. We heard from Jason Coyle in Southwest Team 1 on the north end of all the work they're doing from contingency line, suppression repair, as well as IA on the midnight fire and taking command and control of that. And then on work down into the South Zone where we've been here, Southwest Team 2, for the last couple weeks. And again, just continuing to work on that suppression repair, but focused in on where our fire is here in that piece there by Geronimo, Iron Gate, and Torino. And know that plan's been there. We're implementing that plan that we've been talking about here for the last few days with everybody. Appreciate that. And then with that, you've heard a lot of talk about transition. And we've been transitioning with our brother and sister team, Southwest Team 5, Mark Bernal and his folks. They've been with us really the last couple days. working with us and then really just shadowing us all day today. So as we leave transfer command tomorrow at 0700, we leave out, they move in with really a seamless transition. So just on the behalf of Southwest Team 2, really feel like a part of this community. We were here back the first couple weeks in May during those extreme weather events, and then back here in the first couple weeks of June, and then leading up to these new weather events that we're anticipating here further into the weekend of potential rain. And we've all been praying for rain. You know, all of us, as fire's been going on 69 days, I believe, at this time. We've all been praying for that. But what does that bring with it? It brings also a little concern to us. So, Shannon, thank you for pointing out that after wildfire, because I think we all need to be focused on what comes with the rain, flooding, debris flows. Where are you in relation to that, as well as in relation to the fire? So please take a close look at those things and just know where your people are, know where your family is as you're out and about out there. So, but with that, I'd just like to close with introducing Mark Bernal, Southwest Team 5 IC. We work with these folks quite a bit. Again, they're one of our fellow Southwest teams, so we're glad they're here. Glad they're coming in behind us, and we wish Mark, his team, as well as Southwest Team 1 up north, further success. So, Mark, thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate all the good work, Dave. It's Team 2. Just wanted to say a shout out to them, so thank you very much. So once again, I'm Mark Bernal. I'm the Incident Commander for Southwest Area Team 5. This is actually our second role up here in northern New Mexico. If you don't remember, we did have the Cooks Peak fire just a few weeks ago, and we were here on that. So we are familiar with the area and a lot of the cooperators out and the public that are working in and around this thing. So just wanted to talk a little bit about our strategy. Things are not going to change. We plan on continuing doing all the good work and continuing that work that Team 2 has done. So just wanted to make sure that folks know that we continue, that's the hope, is to continue all that good work. We also are going to be coordinating with our sister team, Team 1 up north. We do have a very good relationship with those folks, and like Dave says, it's our brother and sister team. So we do have that great relationship. Plan on having those good communications and working with those with those resources up north. So a little bit about where we're going with this. We realize that there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. There's still a lot of attention to detail that needs to be done. There is still fire behavior that's actively moving on this thing. But there is a great strategy in place. There's a great plan in place. We have lines, contingency lines, and we're making those plans so we can continue to hold on to this thing. And hopefully the success of this thing will be when those monsoons come in and things start to eliminate that fire behavior. So we will continue to move forward. We'll continue to do a great job and continue to communicate with you all. Thank you, and looking forward to working with you all, and have a great evening.
Thank you, sir. Well, folks, as we on Team 2 head home for 2 or 3 days before we head out again, just want to sincerely thank you all for the graciousness of this community. We've been here about 28 days, and we really do care a lot, and we'll be watching as it moves forward through the rest of this incident. So I'd like to thank Vicki, our American Sign Language interpreter, and our media folks, as well as our closed captioners, for all the help we've had trying to get this information to you folks. We'll still be doing these meetings on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Still doing operational briefings, and nothing's changed. Same message, different colored t-shirt. That's all. For now, have a good evening. Thank you again.